So have you ever wondered about top-lit updraft stoves? We've been working with TLUDs for, I don't know, 20 years. And it's an amazing idea. It's very different than a rocket. When the fuel is tightly packed, which you can do with pellets, then you can control the amount of primary air that's coming up. And so when you meter that primary air, then a small amount, basically the burn is moderated by the amount of primary air that's coming up from the bottom. And then you have secondary air coming across the top, which maintains the fire. And so it is Tom Reed, Dr. Tom Reed, invented the wood gas stove. Here, this is an ad for Tom, who unfortunately is dead. But and so primary air coming up from underneath, preheated secondary air coming across, and then the most beautiful thing is a fan that forces that preheated air and some primary air to add mixing to this TLUD. And you can get tier 4 or even tier 5, close to tier 5, with this simple device, a forced draft TLUD. But the problem is that we are trying to sell stoves in low, medium income markets. And so when we go there, stoves cost less than 10 bucks. It's just a fact. And so if you want to sell stoves and you don't need carbon credits and you don't need to loan people money, then you end up with, okay, we have to make a stove that costs around $5 wholesale to be able to sell it for $10 retail. And so that is our goal. That is what the Osprey Foundation is supporting us to try to pull off in the next 4 years is, can you have stoves that protect health, that are thermally efficient, that cost 10 bucks retail? And so starting with, as we've said in the other videos, starting with the $2.43 SSM ceramic combustion chamber is a big help in trying to keep prices low. And you can put this in a mold, and then you can pour cement around it or whatever. And in that way, you, and we did this in Timor-Leste, and it worked pretty well. So let's talk about TLUDs quickly. Natural draft TLUDs have a combustion chamber, and you fill that with pellets. Make sure that, and then you light it on top. So it's very important to light the pellets on top. And you can see the primary air is coming in from the bottom, very little primary air, and then more secondary air coming in to maintain the fire. And then in the past, we would put a concentrator ring on it, and that would force all of the gases, as you can imagine, to create a column of flame. And that column of flame, we were hoping, would create mixing. And then this is a lantern, and so the flame would come up to about here. But the problem is that a column of flame, the air can't get into it. And so there actually is, it's bad for mixing, creating that laminar, either vertical or horizontal column of flame makes it very hard for the air to get in there. And so you actually are restricting the mixing, which is necessary. So you need the air and the gas and the flame to mix together very well to clean up the combustion. And so when we started working with the new TLUD, we got rid of the disc with the hole in it, and we just poured the pellets inside of a 6-inch in diameter combustion chamber. And when we lit it, we were very surprised that we got short, choppy flame. And it was by making this wider and lowering the amount of draft that we saw short, choppy flame, which we are thinking creates more mixing. And so in a, we made the metal one first. And so maybe, Sam, if we look at that, again, 6 inches in diameter. Again, the pellets go down below, and there's very little primary air that is going into this stove. In fact, this is way too much. You see how good Travis invented this way of controlling the primary air? When you start this thing, you need about that much. So it's an incredible amount, a small amount of primary air. And then, maybe this is easier, Sam. You can see all of those, how much secondary air is going in to maintain the flame above the fuel bed. Okay? And so one of the things that we learned was if you put, we only have 12 secondary air holes here. And then this is tertiary air. The reason we have these holes is when we put more than 12 holes, we cooled the combustion chamber down too much. And when we were transitioning from burning wood to burning charcoal, not all of the wood had been burned out of the charcoal when the flame disappeared. And so we got a lot of smoke. And that can be a problem with natural draft TLUDs. But when you use the right amount of secondary air, everything stays hot, and then there isn't flame at the transition point because you've kept enough flame above the wood until it's completely turned into charcoal. And then it turned out that tertiary air plays an important part in keeping the flame short and choppy. And we are thinking about this and discussing it and investigating why that may be an important variable in low velocity turbulence. So here we have we have the SSM hot support, and there you go. This is a 4-3-4 tier stove, which is great, and we hope costs about $5. If you want tier 4 PM, I think you better use forced draft. But if tier 3 is good enough for you, and it suits your market, it suits your needs, then this might do the trick. And of course, contact us for more information. I'll just go over quickly again. All right, so fans are expensive, but what's more expensive is getting the PVs to run them. And so there really hasn't been a big market for forced draft TLUDs. We're hoping that a $10 natural draft TLUD might be sellable in markets. That we are assisted in that by using the $2.43 combustion chamber. The TLUD needs very, very little air, and we like this invention of Travis to control the air. The amount of primary air controls how fast the wood turns into gas, and so that controls the firepower. The secondary air supplies the needed oxygen to maintain the fire. In this case, where we're hoping that low velocity turbulence is creating mixing, the tertiary air helps to keep those laminar flames from touching the pot. Again, a true statement may be, just don't let flame touch the pot. That is really, if you can do that, then the flame has burnt out the volatiles and they will not condense. And so if you're gonna try something, just don't let the flame touch the pot. Encourage a short jumpy flame instead of a tall laminar flame. Burn up everything in the flame before it can condense on something cold. And then keep the combustion chamber. Don't put in too much secondary air, which is going to cool the combustion chamber so much that you haven't, the flame will go out before all that wood has become charcoal. Charcoal does not make smoke, wood makes smoke. And so for a clean transition, don't put in too much secondary air. And then this is a T-char, which means that the wood is burned for high power and charcoal is burned for low power. So good luck, everybody. Get in touch.